Hi, I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avasec Communications and host of StrategyCast. Join me and my guests, innovators, disruptors, and visionaries as we explore bold and brave marketing strategies that help you transform, scale, and grow your brand. I'm thrilled to chat with Katie Berg, VP of Marketing at Clue, on today's episode of StrategyCast. Katie and I met at MACON, where we talked a ton about how AI is transforming marketing and business strategy. Katie joins me today to share how generative AI can uncover powerful insights from customer feedback and align sales, marketing, and product teams like never before. Plus, hear how the fashion industry uses AI for demand forecasting. Get ready for a show packed with game-changing insights. And don't forget to check out the most recent issue of the StrategyCast newsletter on StrategyCast.com. Just like this episode, it's full of inspiration and a ton of ideas that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to StrategyCast. I'm thrilled to have Katie Berg join the show today. Hello.
Hi, Lori. How are you?
I'm fantastic, but I almost said effing fantastic.
I'm
but I didn't.
fantastic.
Because this is, a show that, we don't swear on. But I met you at MACON, which is a fabulous AI conference for marketing professionals. I heard you speak and called you immediately. And I'm like, I've got to have you on the show. So here we are, months later. We are going to dive in today on how generative AI unlocks qualitative data on buyer intelligence that really guides business strategy. One of those things that I really believe that is failing a lot of marketing teams out there today. Before we get tell us.
That was one of the most interesting things about being at the MACON conference for me. It was just like learning about all the different ways that marketers are thinking about.
I know.
I know. Sorry, go ahead.
It's so exciting because, this is another topic and another show for another day, but so many people, obviously the show, MACON, was focused on marketing, but there's so many C-suites out there that are not focused on what generative AI could do for their operational readiness and business operations in general. And they're really reliant upon marketers to implement AI. So I think for us, this topic is so unique because we're connecting the dots between business strategy, not just marketing, for enablement and success and revenue growth when it comes to all things AI.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think is so interesting about it. And I know we'll get into some of that later, but there was sort of the initial wave, I think, of trying to think about how do we use AI for generating more content or more blog posts, but there's so much more that it's capable of in terms of driving our strategy. So I'm excited to share some early thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah, you have an incredible background. Tell us a little bit more about your background, your journey, and a little bit about the company you're with now.
Yeah, I feel like my background's really random. But like in the randomness, I feel like it's given me a lot of new perspective that's coming really handy as I've grown through my career. So I've worked in marketing my entire career, but in lots of different industries. So right now, and for the last 7 years, I've been working at Clue. And Clue is a competitive intelligence and win-loss software company. A super, super interesting space. And sort of before that, without getting into too much detail, I was working in public sector. I had been working at a nonprofit in Zambia for a couple of years. I had worked in the event space. So I'd worked in all these sort of different stakeholder engagement and events and like all these different areas of marketing and market research as well. And coming to Clue has been a really interesting experience of being able to bring pieces of that. As I've sort of moved up as a leader within the company, when I started 7 years ago, it was a marketing team of one. It was like me. It was me, and we were a 13-person company. and we were figuring it out as we went.
Do you love
Uh,
it?
I love it. I
Oh,
love
I love
the
it.
the
Yeah.
build, just like there's nothing more high pressure feeling than sort of being at a startup and there's a million, like everything is on fire around you, but you
Yeah.
can only focus on a certain amount of things. You only have a certain amount of time. And so the constant challenge of trying to make the right decisions around what we prioritize and what we do and how that's going to drive our growth has been just like intellectually really interesting. So I've loved it.
I love it. And just, you know, a lot of times you can feel like you're playing whack-a-mole, but whack-a-mole's never been so fun because it's kind of like you are building the plane as you're flying it in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. I mean, strategy is the foundation. We're locked and loaded there, but there's so many things happening around that that can change the strategy. And which is why we're talking about business. I mean, the business itself really can change the strategy based on a competitive inroad that somebody's making,
Mhm.
based on buyer insights that aren't pulling as well as you maybe thought they did, or based on the outcome of a product launch and a pivot that you learned through the customer service team onboarding the client and they're using it in a different way. I mean, there's so many things that can come into play that I think marketing's at the forefront of really adapting to and saying, hey, it's okay. We're going to do this instead. Those pivots are constant, I think, in early stage companies.
There's a marketing leader who spoke about, and her name's Latney, and she was former CMO of Six Sense. Now she's the CRO. And I think in part because of the way she looked at the role, she called the chief marketing officer role chief market officer. And I remember listening to a speech she gave once that was talking about marketing leaders and their role in driving business strategy. We're at 100% the forefront, like the front lines of what's happening in the market. What are competitors doing? What are some of the other market forces that are at play that are impacting our buyers? Where are our revenue opportunities? Where are the revenue opportunities getting more difficult? And I've really leaned into that just over the last few years intentionally, trying to own the role as the marketing leader at our company, also in driving our revenue strategy, which is really, I think, as well. I'm sure a lot of marketers this year are looking at how we start to take our buyers through more of the buying journey through like digital experiences and marketing experiences. I think we're going to be covering more of the entire process for revenue generation, not just pipe generation or whatever people are owning for now. And so it's a really interesting time for marketing leaders, I think, and leaning into driving the business strategy is such like an interesting opportunity in the role that I love. And especially it's the space that we live and play in, obviously. Our software deals with competitive enablement, so we're all day long helping our customers serve up to their executive teams information about the competitive market landscape or serve their revenue teams with the type of competitive insights they need to win their deals. And so it's been selfishly just a really interesting company and space to work for that I found really fascinating and I've been able to learn from as well.
Yeah, well, and I know everyone working around you is learning a lot from you as well because of that very, very strategic mindset. Why don't you believe that brands place more importance on buyer intelligence? Um, that it's like a slingshot in a lot of situations, or they might have 12 personas,
Mhm.
uh, or they are just going to figure it out along the way.
Why do I think it's been difficult for marketing leaders to sort of collect that information?
Not even collect it, placing more importance on it.
It's an interesting that's an interesting question. I think for me, one of the unlocks that has come just in the last year, really, with like the disruption through generative AI, is this ability to actually like make sense of huge volumes of qualitative data. So in the past, I think as marketing teams, if we're doing persona research, we're going to run a market study or we're going to pull some interview findings from research that we're doing, and then it sort of lives in that document and it lives lost in our drive somewhere and some of us will remember it, but it's hard to act on and it's hard to action on. And so I think that we've built marketing and ops systems that really required a lot of qualitative data and qualitative tagging and CRMs to group people and segment people and tag them in certain ways with what we could kind of qualitatively see with them. What I've been testing and what I'm really excited about is I think generative AI unlocks this whole new world for us, which allows us to actually synthesize a sort of qualitative buyer information that we can have access to, and to do it in a way that in the future we should be able to drive marketing strategy off of. So like the simplest example could be on our demo request form, we have an open field that says, how did you hear about us? And it's not like a radio button. It's not a multiple choice button. It's just an open field. And some people leave it blank. And a lot more people than you think actually fill it out. And they'll say, I heard about Clue from some podcast that I listened to, or from this person on LinkedIn, or from this conference I went to. And they're like, it's so insightful, the information that they give us. But it was becoming really hard to do much with that, because at the end of a quarter, you're looking at hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of qualitative fields,
Right.
missions. And so what am I going to do? Sit there and like manually count like and tag each one? No, we just like really hard to find the time to do that. But a super simple example is we've been able to just upload that into our own AI. Like we have an internal AI tool. We're able to upload that and synthesize the themes and get some really amazing insights over a year's worth of submissions of how people have heard about us. And that literally informed our strategy this quarter around what programs we wanted to invest more time into, because they were driving the most demo requests, something I otherwise would never have tracked through just the attribution.
So the moral of the story is the buyer intelligence is at your fingertips. You just need to find ways to uncover it.
Yes.
And the importance on it you've just illustrated. It's just defined your ongoing strategy moving forward. So you and I both have organizations where we're building custom AI tools in-house, and really gaining incredible intelligence on all sorts of different things. For our listeners today that may not have that ability in-house yet, what tools would you suggest that they utilize to gain more of these insights?
To gain more of these insights. Well, so, and when you say in-house tools, I'm curious what you're thinking when you say that.
So I'll give you an example of an in-house tool we just built to gain intelligence on behalf of a client. We built a custom chat that basically took 15,000 different reviews from dozens of different review sites on behalf of this client. And we brought all the data together. So it not only collected all the data, but it continues to update it as more data is added out in the, World Wide Web sphere.
Yeah.
And then so we can go in and ask about any type of sentiment question, a product question. We can define it by date. So were these certain segment of customers unhappy about X 10 years ago, and is that still something that's mentioned today, or have we overcome it? So we built the custom chat to provide us the intelligence that we didn't have the manpower to deploy with 15,000 different reviews.
That's, first of all, sounds amazing.
It is the coolest thing. So cool. And we've got example after example after example on how we're bringing in that data.
So there's a lot of stuff. So I guess my sort of theory on everything as it comes to utilizing technology is always to start with seeing what you can do on your own. I always love to do that because it really helps me to figure out, what am I actually trying to solve for? What am I trying to build? And to do that before I start to like purchase or buy or evaluate tools. So I think for ourselves on our marketing team, the simple things we've done is the example I shared about like just running our demo source submissions through our own. It's like your enterprise version of ChatGPT to pull out like analysis. Easy. That took 2 minutes. That's so simple. We're pulling as well out of Gong. So Gong records all of our sales calls, and we can, instead of pulling deal notes on our own or relying on SDRs or salespeople to capture deal notes, we are simply pulling summaries from Gong into our CRM. So we've started with mapping these like really basic points in time where we could pull all of our buyer data through different points of the buyer journey and plug it into our CRM.
Yeah.
And my belief is like on top of that, we're going to be able to build this sophisticated system to like cross-reference these different forms of research and information in the future. But like little things that we do that have really enabled our team, our marketing team as well, is using if you went to Macon, you heard of some of the free tools that they created. They have like a campaigns GPT and a problems GPT.
Problem value. Yep.
We get our team to run all of our projects through Campaigns GPT to ask it for advice on how to improve their campaigns. So we take their campaign brief and they copy paste it and they ask for insights on what am I missing? And it helps call out when they have missing CTAs, when they haven't identified audience too strongly. So they've like started to utilize technology there a little bit more interestingly. The way for us, and it's a little bit selfish, self-serving, like at Clue, because I have Clue, we can already capture all of the G2 reviews and they're synthesized automatically, like within the tool. I believe
Right.
you can probably just pull publicly, or you could upload a CSV file on that as well if you're partnered with G2. We also are able to pull all of our win-loss data, and that's constantly being synthesized. And you were able to upload our own win-loss and interview transcripts that we're doing on our own. So,
Yeah.
like, I think that you could probably do the like slightly less sophisticated version similar to what you've built for this client, which sounds amazing. It's like we can kind of build the rudimentary version of this with some of the free tools, and you figure out what you need and its shortcomings, and then it's a great opportunity to understand like where could I use a purpose-built tool, whether it's like a Clue or it's just whatever you've built here. It's like then you understand exactly what you're looking for. And as a marketing leader, that's what I'm trying to figure out in terms of what's the work that my team is doing that we could do a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently and effectively through utilizing the right technology, and like what's the right sort of tool to use for it. So
Yeah.
I don't know,
You know,
maybe that's helpful.
I love all that. And I'm having this epiphany as you're speaking. And, a year ago when generative AI was being released, many, many marketers and many people in the C-suite said, and Sam Altman said, agencies are going to go away. Strategists are going to go away. AI is going to be doing all of the work for you. And I think it's informing incredible intellectual decisions that we can make, but the human element is still very important.
Mhm.
We've established that many, many
Hugely.
times.
Yeah.
What also I think is different today is that marketing is looked at, I believe, as a stronger force of nature to drive business strategy than the
Mhm.
business strategy driving marketing. Do you agree?
I mean, deeply, yes. Deeply, yes. It kind of goes back to that like original thing I said about
Yeah.
trying to own the role of being like the chief market officer and really understanding your buyers and where your revenue opportunities sit in your market. So here would be a really recent example. Every year, our team does a strategic offsite. We bring all of our senior leaders, and it could be 3 to 5 days of talking about what's like the 3 to 5 year vision of where we're headed, what are we going to be using as our growth levers in the year ahead? And what's the strategy behind all of that? And the role that I played um, was really driving a lot of that conversation. So I brought to the table a bunch of buyer information about each of the markets that we're operating in. And so I created this dashboard for each market, and it was by segment, it was also by product, it was by region, and we mapped out really visually on a simple quadrant, sort of here's the revenue opportunity of all these markets. And then here's based on like our understanding of that buyer, and it's part qualitative, but very much quantitative.
Right.
What's our conversion rate through pipeline? What's our net retention rate? Like, where does this segment or market sit in terms of like broader product market fit? And so it facilitated this amazing discussion with our executive team where we mapped, let's take our enterprise segment or something, put it on the map in terms of where it's at, and then had a discussion around what would unlock a higher level of fit with this market that would help us to capture this total revenue opportunity. And so I was driving a conversation to say, look, here's all of the markets we could operate in. Here's sort of where we fit within them in terms of fit and ability to capture that revenue. Some of that stuff is also impacted by external market forces, right? Like smaller, the lower end of the market is like more budget constrained, or there's like ChatGPT that becomes like a bigger status quo threat for a lot of software companies right now. So we're talking about these things and understanding what are the unlocks that would allow us to fully capture the revenue of this market. That is really, to me, like taking ownership of saying, I'm going to own my role in knowing our buyer and bringing our buyer information to the table and helping to guide my executive team through conversations about how we grow our business and what the strategy is to do that.
Right, which to me is remarkable insights, and you've got to have an incredible leader at the table as well that's allowing marketing to bring those insights. How is the sales team engaging in all of this along with you?
In terms of like their approach and opinion on those same markets, like how do we
Exactly.
partner on
Yeah.
that? Yeah, so I think a lot of well, in this case, a lot of the prep work that we had done for that meeting, I knew that me and my sales leader were entirely aligned on our point of view of each
Yeah.
market, and I had them contribute to it. So I actually didn't create this whole sort of deck. It was really a deck with dashboards on each market. I did not create that on my own. I created the skeleton of it and input all of the data and sort of my initial assessment on each one. And then I had our enablement team, enablement leader, our sales leader, and our CS leader all actually go through all of those markets and give their own judgment on both like fit and product requirements needed to unlock that market and also the execution of their teams within all of those markets. So we were trying to look at like, what was it? Three different things for each market. It was what's our funnel performance, what's our product market fit, and then what's our actual execution within this market. Because sometimes the truth is you're like, we didn't have the right leader for that team, or we didn't have the right people, or we didn't sort of like drive accountability enough, and it was an execution issue, and we're going to put our hands up on that. And so that's the way we looked at each market. But 100%, I think, making sure that we're having constant communication and staying aligned with all the go-to-market leaders, super important. I've also had more learnings this year around the importance of making sure like product and go-to-market are staying connected, because we've done a lot of work at Clue to connect our go-to-market teams. And I think that's been really great. And we have more work to do. We kind of put your head up and you're like, oh yeah, that's not even enough. We still have to be in total lockstep with product.
Yeah, I think that's always, and just realizing that that need is there is half the battle, right? Instead of it becoming an afterthought. As you were talking, speaking, you've mentioned product market fit a couple times, and I think it's really important for our listeners to understand the difference between problem market fit and product market fit. And a lot of very early stage companies believe they launched within product market fit, but really they're problem market fit. And the insights that they're gaining, very, very broad compared to when you ultimately launch within product market fit, but they confuse the two. And I think one of the reasons why there can be, a negative POV toward marketing is because the teams feel they're in product market fit, but they're not. They're in problem market fit. And marketing's role during that stage is to try a lot of things to figure out equally what doesn't work and what does work, and with the right audience at the table. Just comment on that for our listeners and viewers today, if you would.
Maybe a couple of comments on that. First, I think that's probably a super common challenge to face because it can be it's easier to go from zero in revenue to 10 or 20 million when you're starting off, so that momentum can feel like, wow, we must have amazing product market fit because look at our growth and look at our year-over-year growth. That's very different from saying we have customers we've been able to retain, expand, and grow. And when we start to mature along with our customers, we're really understanding if we're meeting their needs. So
Yeah.
I think you're totally right that it's not often like, or it's normal to kind of face that bump as you grow, to have to reassess where your product market fit really is. I also think product market fit is not a constant. So when external things change, when there's technology disruption that changes literally sort of the foundations of everything that we do, external things can change your product market fit. And do you really solve the needs of your customers, especially if they're more budget conscious? Like, did you have product market fit? So it can really kind of like put tension and help you to see the reality of how much value you're driving for your customer. I think when it comes back to marketing and what that means to us as marketing leaders is, and I said this before and I said that in my presentation, my belief is that like to us, competing and driving revenue, that all starts before the first touch. So it's our job as marketing leaders to really identify and continuously learn who are the customers that we can not only like bring in as pipeline, but that we can close and that we can grow. And
Yeah.
so I'm never looking at my job being done based on us hitting our pipeline targets. If that means that like our close rate was super low or our net retention was super low, then I have failed.
Yeah.
Because like us winning means we're bringing in the type of buyers that are able to buy, that will buy Clue, and that also will like stay and grow because we found people that really have a problem that we can effectively solve. And it
Yeah.
can be easy early days to chase the like pipeline at any cost. I just care about my number and I want to hit it and I want to crush it. But it ultimately is not success. Like no board cares
Yeah.
at
It's not
all.
exactly. And that's not how you create that retention.
No.
That ARR that really helps you get to product market fit from problem market fit.
Yeah.
So in studying for the show today, and because I love fashion, I was reading a story in Vogue Business. And one of the things that the fashion industry is doing, surrounding a lot of what we're talking about today, is AI-powered demand forecasting tools to analyze qualitative data from social media trends, e-commerce, and catwalks to predict future hit items. This approach is helping fashion buyers make more informed decisions, balancing the data-driven insights with human intuition to maintain unique brand curations. There's a brand by the name of My Teresa,
Mhm.
which many of our listeners and viewers will know about, that is using that intently to even predict what future buying patterns should look like based on a very, very early trend that they see just starting to drive traction.
How perfect of an example is that to say when we can actually get insights out of like the qualitative data that sits out in the world, whether it's on social or it's looking at someone's reaction to a catwalk or whatever it is, and now we're actually going to use that to drive business decisions. I think that's like a perfect example of what's going to be able to be unlocked in all sorts of industries, not even just B2C. I could see that
Yeah.
exact same use case playing out in the B2B world where we're able to track sort of growing demand based on social sentiment. We're able to use that in our own B2B forecasting. We're able to like identify and find the right buyers who are looking for solutions at the right time. That's super interesting.
It is, and I think it's worth stating here that I believe consumer marketing really drives a lot of B2B insights. The more we look at our buyers as a quote unquote consumer instead of just a B2B buyer, it really does drive, I think, a lot of uniqueness and strategy and approaches that we may not otherwise try, just because at the end of the day, it's, we're all human.
Mhm.
Oh, and it sounds cliche, but human to human marketing is, always will be at play. And there's a lot to be said for that.
100%. It's so funny you say that too, because I feel like in B2B, we're often laughing at ourselves because we're kind of 2, 3 years behind whatever is happening in B2C at all times,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's the way that they utilize media right now. I think in the last couple of years, more B2B companies have been adopting more of a like owned media, video-centric approach to like getting out in front of customers and entertaining them and educating them, not just sort of like your corporate regular communications, which is really cool. And so, yes, I totally agree. And we now also just have the ability to capture insights from our buyers or understand our buyers at a different level that allows us to treat them like individual humans, sort of like programmatically, different from maybe how we've had to work with them in the past through some of our marketing technology restraints, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love it. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the competitive nature of a lot of what's happening within the buyer mindset. I mean,
Mhm.
we're hit by competitors day in and day out, and we know that building relationships are key in those competitive markets. How do you prioritize, establish and establish truly genuine relationships with potential buyers to really gain that competitive advantage?
So that's such an interesting question because already in it, you've called out like what the opportunity is for marketing leaders, which is in a world where, say, AI is going to be able to generate a lot of the content, it's going to be able to create a lot of things that we see digitally, like trying to think about, and the volume of it is just going to be so high, trying to think about how we stand out and how we build authentic relationships with our customers, I think is going to be our moat, right?
Right.
So we've tested, I mean, we're still at the beginning um like steps of testing all of this, but a couple of things that we've done is we invested in community really early at Clue. That was for years, and so it started first with events and then and more virtual sort of community style events, ones just for customers, ones for buyers. We've done in-person sort of small roadshows and done a lot of like fun media content to really put our personalities out there. So actually, I've always thought that our competitive edge is our brand because we've made it about like who we are as humans. And if
Right.
you connect with Clue or you connect with any of our content, you're going to get to know the people of Clue. You're going to
Right.
get to know like who will be the people behind the screen that are helping you out when you're a customer. That's been like a really core part of the content that we've made. And this year, just last week, we ran our very first user conference. And I'll be honest, I was like really nervous because we'd never run a conference. First of all, I'm like, this is like a huge undertaking. Why did we choose to do this? But
Oh, it's major.
it's like, why did this feel like a fun idea? This is not fun. This is a lot of stress. But we opened up 100 seats and we sold out within 3 weeks. And we had this
Awesome.
event. Yeah, it was so great. We had this event last week, and the entire company was absolutely buzzing from it. And I knew that they wouldn't fully get it until the conference actually happened. And so I was pumping up our marketing team because we were like leading the charge with energy and stuff. And I was like, just wait. When we get into a room with all of our customers, people are going to be thrilled. And they were. And it was just a moment for us where I was like, this is the result of spending years and years and years building and investing in a community
Right.
and trying to build those authentic relationships, and connecting in person is absolutely unbeatable.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to think about what do we do in 2025 and how does that scale, or how do we continue to evolve that? But to me, the like number one competitive edge that you can have is being authentic in who you are and trying to connect with people on a personal level. And the meeting in person is unbeatable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We've got, as a part of our very in-depth strategy process, we've got a tool that we refer to as Pick Two. And after we've taken a look at the buyer insights and all that intelligence there and the competitive insights, and we really have mapped out where the competitors sit within a quadrant that has quality, customer intimacy, innovation, and price. We map out all the competitors and really kind of define where a sweet spot is that we can sit. And where we feel most brands can really succeed, as you've just illustrated, is with customer intimacy. And a lot of people, a lot of brands just want to be, very, rudimentary from the standpoint of, let's get the sale and move on to
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
the sale, move on. And what you're explaining here is something that creates more opportunity for retention and referral, which I think a lot of brands miss. They're just transactional is the word I'm trying to come up with. And you've
Mhm.
illustrated, just with the customer show that you had, and a lot of the buyer intelligence and programs that you deploy within that your brand, that Clue is so much more than that.
It's interesting, this like quadrant that you call out, because it does sort of give you, what I love about that is you're trying to find where are the gaps that where we could position and be sort of uniquely differentiated. And there's a like a layer on top of that, which is, to me, it's like your moat, which
Right.
is how difficult is that to repeat? If you were to change your pricing strategy, a competitor could really come in and quickly make a change as well. Like that's not that big of a moat because it's easy to
Exactly.
change these things.
Yeah.
But like the years and time and effort of building media and community and in-person relationships, that's a much bigger moat to me. That's really hard to compete against.
Well, and it takes much longer to achieve. And you can
Yes.
be high price too, or you can be low price. I mean, it's all,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's the pricing strategy is all over the board. But it's very, I mean, you could be low price, but it'd be very, very difficult to be high touch within low price because of the sheer volume of customers that you have to have. So it's so, I mean, I'm talking about general brands. It's so unique to actually like put yourself in that situation. We love it.
The other, sorry, just the last thing you reminded me of is we created this vision a long time ago on the marketing team. We reflect on it every quarter, which is our objective. So we're not just trying to build a moat, we're trying to drive revenue. And our goal is that like we have won in the hearts and the minds of our buyers before they've ever even seen a demo.
I
So
love it.
we've won that deal. And that's so we look at our competitive win rate. Our competitive win rate's like exceptionally high. I think as a result of all of the brand work that we do. And it's really, I'd want to call that out because a lot of marketing leaders don't necessarily work for a CEO that like gets or loves or advocates for marketing, right?
Yeah.
I do. So I get all this like leeway to like do fun stuff and try things because he believes in brand. But we constantly are looking at our competitive win rate and measuring just sort of like our goal is to own the category. Our goal is to be the market leader, perceived market leader. And we measure that in different ways, competitive win rate by doing quarterly brand awareness surveys to understand who our buyers think is like the number one vendor in the space. So we're trying to really intentionally connect that brand work, which can feel longer term, harder to measure, or the community sort of connection. It's hard to measure the value of that, but we're intentionally trying to do it to build the trust from our executive team.
Well, I love it. And given the fact that 90% of buyers make a decision before they've even had a touch point, it totally illustrates the point that you just made, but the power behind marketing. You can't get there without marketing. I mean, it's just, essential. We're coming on to the close of our show today, but before we close out, I did want to ask you one last question about some of the challenges that you've experienced along the way and really bought in building the buyer intelligence that ladders back up to that business strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think across the board, when it comes to the challenges that we've seen around utilizing AI, a lot of it comes with trust. So, making sure that we're actually putting our data in places where it's safe, which is why it's interesting when you bring up the questions of what can you do on your own.
Right.
First, you need to be really careful, and so do like all of our customers with where they put their internal data. It shouldn't be thrown into like a chat GPT public source. We have to be super careful of that. The second thing is like making sure that we're still always keeping a human in the loop with everything that's being done because there's still hallucinations. There's still like, we still need to make sure that we are the guardians of trust. And if we are sharing competitive intelligence out to our sales team, we need to make sure that every single thing that we are telling them they can say to their buyers is truthful, can be sourced, can be referenced. So like that is absolutely critical, especially in the field of competitive intelligence, is to maintain that trust of where you're putting your data and also making sure you're maintaining a human in the loop to protect the information and make sure that it's truthful.
I love that. So just this morning, as I was prepping for the show, I went to Google and asked a few questions to get some examples. It was not great. So I'm like, okay, I'll try chat, but then I'm going to have to go back and cut and paste it into Google, see if I can find the article, blah 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 blah. Just this morning, I've got my Intel right here, and it gives me the source at the bottom of each example that they provided me. This is the first time I've seen it. And I mean, Time, Vogue, Wikipedia, I didn't go there. Deloitte, obviously an incredible source, but it's now providing you the source. So to that point, I think there's so much value in just the enterprise version of ChatGPT as a starting point for a lot of these brands.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the enterprise companies that have more built out programs where they're enabling their reps on all sorts of sort of competitive and buyer information, they can't really use the chat GPTs. They need sort of like a higher level of control over what system is in the machine and what system is shared out with their revenue teams. But I think it's all a really great starting point to help you see what's possible.
Which is why companies like you exist.
That's right.
For that data.
That's right.
What is the best way for our audience to get in touch with you?
The number one best way is never to email me ever because my email is a trash fire and I don't subscribe to managing it anymore. The best way is
I
on
love
LinkedIn.
it.
Am I the only one?
No,
Emails.
no.
Inboxes need to die in 2025.
Uh,
LinkedIn for sure. That's where you and I connected. I have the
yep.
easiest time for sure. I love DMing and connecting with people. I've made so interesting in this world. I've made so many great connections over
Yeah.
LinkedIn, people who have like turned into friends. So for sure, that would be the best place. Yeah.
I love that. And if you'd like to email me, please email me at Lori at strategycast.com. And as you know, I'm prolific on LinkedIn as well. You can find me there, Lori Sartorius Jones on LinkedIn. Katie, you have been absolutely amazing. I'm so glad we brought our vision to life after that incredible meeting and presentation that we had in Cleveland this year at MAYCON. Thank you so much for your appearance on StrategyCast.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.